Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chop and Slice. I'm one of the co-hosts, Michael, and this is
Brandon.
We are here to talk about Friday the 13th, 1980. It is the original film, the first installment into the Friday the 13th franchise, where we get to meet Jason, but he is not the primary killer. That is somebody else. So we'll dive into it all, break it down scene by scene, get into what we like, what we didn't like, and have an open discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie, you're 42 years late. Go see it. There will be spoilers, obviously. So let's get into it, Brandon.
So the movie opens up. It is 1958. You see some kids hanging around a fire. They're singing the Hallelujah song. These were the good old days. So after kind of singing the song, everyone's having a good time. These two teenagers, male and female, to be exact, they begin to make their way upstairs, ready to, do the deed. But then you kind of see in first person the killer kind of stalking and making their way upstairs, approaches the couple. The guy notices the killer and was like, we ain't doing nothing, like getting ready to explain himself, and then gets stabbed. The girl begins to try to run in fear, but then gets cornered, and then the screen kind of freezes on her face, and then that is the opening credits of Friday the 13th. So, in our opening scene, we have this cute girl. Her name is Annie. She begins kind of walking by these gas pumps, notices a dog, asking the dog, like, if it knows the way to Camp Crystal Lake. Like, what would a dog know? So, I think she's just crazy. But anyways, she makes her way into, like, this bar or diner or something, asking the people there if they know about Camp Crystal Lake, if they have any directions. Comes across, this driver kind of volunteers to maybe give her a ride. They make their way outside, and then that's when Ralph comes into the movie and bewares the two that it's got a death curse and starts saying all this crazy shit. So the driver tells Ralph to kind of buzz off, leave her alone. They get in the car and they make their way. So they start heading down the road, kind of making small talk, getting into it with each other, getting to kind of know each other a little bit. And the driver kind of tells Annie about the history of Camp Crystal Lake, letting her know that there were some teenagers that were murdered, but she's very brave and, I'm not afraid. And he's like, teenagers, all dumb. Shortly after that, it kind of cuts to Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon makes his appearance. He plays the role as Jack in this movie. Just some kids riding down the road, I think smoking a little bit of dope, listening to some music, get ready for a camping trip. They arrive at the camp. That's when they meet Steve. They're all just kind of bullshitting, talking shit. Steve is, I guess Annie begins, or no, not Annie, Alice, who's our main protagonist in this movie. She's kind of doing some work on the house. Steve is kind of checking her out in a very creepy way. They begin flirting. I guess they've had some history with each other. So yeah, he's checking out her ass, begging her to give him another chance, kind of being creepy about it. And yeah, I guess she kind of, in a nice way, like, rejects him. Yeah, just creepy.
I think they were an item before that because he was asking her to give him another chance.
Right.
So I think they were...
Right, they had a little something going on. But then it kind of cuts away from all that. You see Annie walking along the road. She hitches a ride from this stranger. She tells the person that she hitches a ride with, to, kind of telling her a little bit about herself, and, the driver just keeps driving. The driver doesn't say a word. Annie seems to be a little bit nervous. But then the driver goes past her stop and tells the driver, that was my stop, you missed it. But the driver just keeps on driving.
Speeds up.
Yeah, speeds up, actually. Just speeds up, and that's when she really starts to panic. And Annie actually jumps out of the car, rolls off, and then the driver kept on driving for a little bit, but then stops and begins to back up and ready to get out of the car to chase Annie. Annie runs pretty deep into the woods. The driver gets out of the car, begins to chase her through the woods. They do this little chase thing, but then Annie falls right in front of the driver. Somehow the driver appeared right in front of her.
Knows the woods.
Right, knows the woods. And right then and there, slices her throat, and Annie is officially out of the movie.
You thought maybe originally, if you haven't seen the movie, that they were going to set her up as, our Laurie Strode, our final girl, possibly, but it killed her off pretty quick, so...
Yeah, you kind of think that she's going to be the main...
She looks sweet and innocent, she acts very sweet and innocent, but she didn't last long, so... That's a little surprising the first time you watch this movie.
Yep. So, we go to our next scene. Just some teenagers skinny dipping. And I believe Ned, he's kind of out there. I believe that was the character, Ned.
Dressed up as an Indian.
Well, no, this was before the Indian thing. Maybe it was after. No. He was kind of out there swimming in the lake. Remember, he did that practical joke where he pretended like he was drowning.
Yeah.
And then they
jumped in.
Right, they jumped in, they pull him out, and then right when they're about to give him mouth to mouth, he starts making out with this girl or whatever.
Yeah.
So we get to that, just more teenagers messing around. Next scene we get to, Alice is just kind of roaming around the cabin. She gets startled by a black snake. The other campers come to her rescue. Do you want to say something, Michael?
No.
Nothing? Okay. So they get startled by snake. The other campers come to her rescue. I believe it was Ned that killed the snake.
With the, looked like a machete.
Yeah, he kind of chops
And that
it.
was actually a real-life snake. That was a real snake.
Yes. As far as I know, yes.
So they did kill a
real
real-life snake. Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So then, cop pulls up for some suspicious activity. I think this is the whole Indian shit. Whatever.
Yep.
Talking to some of these teenagers. Cops begin to question the teenagers about Ralph and warning them to kind of stay away from him, that he's just kind of being a pest and harassing people.
Stalking,
harassing. Doing all kinds of shit. So then it kind of goes to the next scene where right after the cop was explaining this and after he leaves, Alice is just kind of picking up the place and then gets startled by Ralph. He just kind of pops up out of nowhere, out of the closet or something.
Yeah, it looked like out of the closet or pantry or something like that.
Right, and the death curse thing and all this shit, and tells them they're all doomed, rides away on his bike. So then Alice gets rejoined with her fellow counselors. I guess there's a problem with the generator. So I guess they're kind of just going around trying to fix this whole generator situation or whatever. But then it kind of cuts to Kevin Bacon, who's Jack in the movie, fooling around with Marcy.
Marcy, yeah.
They're kind of walking around. Marcy and Jack, they sit down together, telling Jack about this dream she had, like something about raining blood. I don't know. I didn't understand her, but yeah, and I don't think he's really too interested.
Yeah,
either.
he didn't care.
He didn't give a shit. He's just trying to get in her pants.
Yeah.
So then in the next scene, Storm rolls in. They, Jack and Marcy, they go to try to get somewhere dry.
Go into another cabin.
Right, they go into another cabin to try to get dry, ready to get it on. And then it cuts to a different part where these kids are just messing around wanting to play strip Monopoly. It spends a lot of time on this strip Monopoly. It just keeps going back to it. But yeah, they're just playing strip Monopoly, screwing around. So then Marcy and Jack, they're kind of, having sex, whatever. And then the camera moves up to see one of the counselors' throat slit. And
Yes.
that was Ned, I believe. It wasn't Bill, because Bill gets killed later.
So Bill is the one playing strip Monopoly.
Right. Ned is the one, I
Alice.
believe, that had the throat slit
Yeah.
from above. So they're just continuing to mess around a little bit. Marcy, I think, has to run to the bathroom or
To the
whatever.
outhouse. She
Right,
goes
to
into
the outhouse. Right.
While Jack is just laying there pretty much, just
Right.
chilling.
He ends up lighting a cigarette.
Yep.
Or a joint or whatever. I couldn't tell what it was. And then right there, from underneath the bed, a hand reaches up and grabs him by the forehead, and a spear comes through, piercing through his neck.
You see
pretty-
all like the blood.
Blood
come
just
out.
oozing out. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And Kevin Bacon is officially out of the movie.
He's
That-
gone.
Yeah, that was it.
Thought maybe he was gonna stick around a little bit longer too, but didn't
Yeah.
happen.
So then, Marcy is still in the outhouse. She starts to hear strange noise, thinking it's Jack, but we all know Jack is dead. So she begins to investigate the noise, and all of a sudden she turns around, she lets off this really cheesy scream, and bam, axe to the head,
Yeah.
dead. It's kind of off screen.
Yeah,
but
they
whatever.
show it off screen and then flash back to it, which is weird.
And then it goes back to strip Monopoly. Again, they're doing a lot of that, more fooling around. One of the girls leaves. She leaves in this raincoat.
Well, she hears screams. She hears like help me, help me, help me.
I think that was Alice later on.
No, that was this the
Black-haired girl.
other, yeah. She hears help me, help me, help me.
Was that this girl?
Yeah. And
Okay.
she goes looking for her, and then she ends up in the middle of the woods where it's all rainy and stuff like that, and then that's where we see the killer appear.
But I believe that was Brenda.
Yeah, Brenda.
Was that Brenda?
Yes, it was Brenda.
Okay. But before that happens, so she leaves, but we'll say Brenda leaves, but then it goes to the next scene where they're at this diner and this Steve Christie,
Yep,
this
Steve Christie.
douchebag, he's there, he's getting this cup of coffee or whatever
Yep.
he was drinking. He leaves, and then he hitches a ride from this cop.
Yep.
And they start driving. It's still pouring rain out. So, but then it goes to another scene where Brenda, she's brushing her teeth in there, in the
In the outhouse.
Yeah, in the outhouse.
Where Marcy got killed.
Right. And then she begins to head out. I think she hears this, help me.
She goes and investigates. It sounds like a little child.
Right. So she runs out and kind of investigates a little bit, and then you see a hand kind of turn on all the lights. She's in that archery area, and then
I thought for a second she was going to get shot with one of the bow and arrows.
That would have been badass.
Yeah, because if you remember in the beginning where Ned shoots the bow and arrow, he almost hits her. So I thought
that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that would have made sense, right? Where they just would have shot her through, would have actually got her. That would have been cool, but
it would have. But unfortunately, we got an off-screen kill.
Yep, another off-screen kill.
So after that, so Brenda's dead. So eventually the or no, actually before that, before we get back to Steve. In the next scene, we see Alice kind of sitting there playing guitar. Bill, I believe, storms in. Alice and Bill, they then begin to wonder what happened to Brenda, so then they go looking out. That's what happened. They before we get back to Steve Christie, they're looking out for Brenda because they're wondering where the hell everybody's.
They start looking around.
Right. So then we got Steve and the cop. They're still riding down the road, talking some shit. Cop drops them off back at the camp. It shows this welcome to Camp Crystal Lake sign.
Yep. This guy's trying to reboot the camp, trying to get the camp started again.
Right.
Trying to get, the camp revived after the events in 1958.
Exactly. But then right behind the camp, you see, or the sign of the camp, you see a flashlight going, and he's wondering what the hell that is. So he begins to walk towards it, and then another off-screen kill.
His face.
His ugly face. Oh!
And he presumably is stabbed and killed.
So, anyways, I think we're on Bill now. I think Bill is trying to get the generator working on more electrical problems. I don't know.
He's like the maintenance guy.
Yeah.
And counselors.
So now Annie is kind of wondering where Bill is.
Alice, not Annie.
Or right. Sorry. Alice, I meant. Alice.
Yep.
Alice is kind of wondering where Bill is. She's in the kitchen. I think she's making some tea. And then everything goes silent. And then next thing you know, she's out there looking for him. And then finds him hanging from a door.
Yeah.
With like an arrow pierced through his eye and his head.
Yeah, pretty brutal.
Yeah, pretty brutal.
That's when she starts running into another cabin.
Right, and she starts to barricade the door and
it takes like 5 minutes of just her barricading this one door.
Attaches a string to it.
Yeah,
and
it
shit.
is very stupid.
And so she's kind of worried, but then she kind of looks out the window and sees like a car light come on. And then she unbarricades the door.
I'm assuming she thought this was probably Steve Christie or somebody.
Yeah, maybe someone important. But then she goes out, and then that's when Pamela Voorhees makes her appearance into the movie.
Pamela explains that, she's working with the Christies, stuff like that, trying to get the camp back up. And, she goes back into the camp with Alice at this point, and then Alice is telling her about all the dead bodies, and Pamela sees Brenda and pretends she didn't know what happened to her, essentially. So
Alice kind of gains her trust.
For a split second.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
So Alice kind of urges Pamela not to go in there because she thinks she's kind of one of them. And Pamela just responds with, I'm not afraid. So they go in. Pamela takes a look around, and things start to get a little spooky from here. Kind of tells them the history about her son. His name was Jason.
Yeah, this is very important.
Yeah, very important. She tells the whole background story about how the camp counselors weren't watching and they were making love while her young son drowned in the lake.
1957, a year prior from her killing those two camp counselors
Right.
in 1958.
And so she kind of blames all these teenagers for this shit, I guess. And things start to get a little more spooky. Alice starts to panic a little more. And then Alice notices Pamela reaching down, pulling out a knife, and saying, look what you did to him. And then Pamela lunges at her with the knife.
They start fighting, wrestling around.
Right, they begin to fight. They do a lot of fighting around, a lot of chasing. Alice manages to escape out of the cabin. She runs away. Pamela kind of goes on the search for her. They run into this boathouse, do some more fighting. Just kind of a lot of running around, all this shit. Eventually, they make their way to the lake beach, where they fight even more. Pamela has her on the ground, choking. Allison bites her, eventually shoves her off. Then she makes her way. She runs away, picks up a machete. Do you know how that machete got there?
I'm assuming it's like the one, who was it, Bill or Ned that killed the snake?
You think that's where it came from? They just left it on the beach?
That's probably how it got over there. It was the same machete.
Okay. Well, she runs over, basically, bottom line, she runs over, grabs this machete, and cuts her fucking head off. And
Yep, cuts her head off.
and
pretty brutal. You do see the decapitation.
Yeah, it does show the decapitation. That was pretty cool. And then she falls, and Pamela is dead.
Pamela is gone.
So, for some odd reason, Alice decides to
take
a trip out on the boat.
That was weird. I don't know why she decided to do that. Maybe she was just tired. But I still don't understand why she went out on the boat. I still don't get that.
So, she's out on the boat. It starts playing this calming music. Honestly, that music is kind of nostalgic to me.
Yeah.
It helps me remember the movie. But, yeah, it starts playing this music, and she looks out in the distance, sees some police are there. Then all of a sudden, young Jason appears up and pulls her directly into the water.
Yep.
And that's it for that. Then she kind of wakes up, kind of as if she was in a dream.
Yeah. And I think maybe she was. I don't know how to take that.
Well, she wasn't, because all of her friends are dead, and then the
but
story
I think
continues on.
her in the boat with the Jason, I think that part was a dream.
You think so?
How she just woke up like screaming and stuff like that.
Maybe. So she woke up screaming. The cops are kind of letting her know that they pulled her from the water, that all her friends are dead. But Allison is curious what happened to the boy Jason. And the cop responds with, "We didn't find any boy."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "So then he's still there." And then that is the end credits.
Yeah.
So that is the breakdown of 1980s Friday the 13th. In my opinion, I think it's a great movie. See, this is one of those movies that I used to really hate because Jason wasn't in it. This isn't the first Friday the 13th movie I ever saw, so I hated the fact that Jason wasn't in it. But this is kind of one of those movies that kind of grew on me over time. And I kind of began to like it and kind of know the roots of, where this whole franchise came from. And this is just a movie that I guess in my older age learned to appreciate. Michael, how do you feel about the movie?
I really am not a fan of it. I think it's a little cheesy. Some of the dialogue. I'm not a big fan of like the kills and stuff. I thought it could be. I don't know. For a first installment, it's fine. It's not like a home run to me like Halloween was. I just kind of compare it to that movie. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's not great. It's not. It is what it is. It's some of the kills were cool. I guess the decapitation of Pamela is pretty legendary and epic. But yeah, just some of the characters weren't that great and memorable. There's really no character that stood out to me. No final girl that like Alice she didn't really stand out to me. The music I did like. I like the music.
The music is good.
The music is really good. Pretty memorable. They had a. It is what it is. It's not the greatest movie. It didn't really hold my attention or capture any of my interest, to be honest. It's pretty cool that it's Kevin Bacon's debut film.
Was it his debut, though?
I believe it was. I'm pretty sure it was.
Are you sure he didn't have any other films?
Pretty sure that was his making his debut. I could be wrong, but and yeah, it's kind of cool because you don't know who the killer is right away. They kind of keep that a secret. That part I do like. They kind of hide Pamela a little bit. You had no idea who it was going to be, which is cool. But yeah, it wasn't all that. It didn't hold really any of my interest, but it is what it is. So,
see, me, Friday the 13th is it is my favorite horror movie franchise. Definitely not the best installment, but it's not the worst installment. Do you think it's the worst installment, Michael?
I probably would say yes. It is.
Even the
my least...
new beginning, even?
Yeah.
Really?
I prefer new.
You really think that the first installment is the worst installment?
Yeah, I would probably say this is the worst one,
wow.
Even over New Beginning. New Beginning actually had some pretty cool kills, to be honest. Had some pretty gnarly stuff go on.
Okay.
It is a Jason ripoff, but
you even hate this more than Jason Goes to Hell?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I like Jason Goes to Hell more than this.
Wow.
Jason's in it. He's featured. He's got, he is still a badass in that. Yeah, he's not in it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate this movie that much. Like I said, this movie really grew on me. I really love the music, and
music is good.
Music is very good. Over time, I don't know. I guess I really learned to appreciate these characters. There's points of the movies where it's cheesy, but in a way it feels real. Like, I don't know, it just kind of.
I could see how it was scary for its time.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Anyways, if you want to get to the ratings, Michael, what would you give this movie?
I give this movie a 2.5 out of 10.
Ooh.
2.5 out of 10.
Better than I thought.
Yeah.
So 2.5, huh?
2.5 out of 10, yeah. It's, like I said. And that's mainly because I like the music, but the characters aren't memorable to me. It's just kind of a cheap produced movie, but I could see why it got some love, but yeah, not my favorite by far. What do you think? What is your rating?
For a rating on this, I'm gonna give a say 5.5 on this one. It's kind of debating between 5.5 and 6, but I'm gonna take
5.5.
Right, 5.5.
So that gives the movie an official rating of 8 out of 20.
8 out of 20. That is the official Chop and Slice rating.
That's basically an F, guys, but it has its moments. I still acknowledge it as a legendary film, and it did spawn Friday the 13th franchise. So I do appreciate the Jason character. So I'm glad it got made. I understand how legendary it is, but just not one of my favorites. I gotta look at it as a separate film. I gotta look at it as, its own entity, and as its own entity, I don't think it's that great of a horror flick. So that's just my opinion.
So yeah, that just about wraps it up for the original 1980 Friday the 13th. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know what you think of the movie, and
hopefully your mom loves you just as much as Pamela loves Jason. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you, guys. Have a good day and night. And please, if you want to, you're not forced, but please like and subscribe. And like I said, hopefully your mom loves you and you love your mom. Take care, guys.